One of those desires that almost everyone harbors at some point in their lives is participating in a lottery drawing. There is a possibility that only one person will end up with all of the reward money from the jackpot. But that chance is only 1 in 100K billion. Mark and Cindy Hill, who are both now 52 years old, happen to be among those fortunate few people. Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It was just a happy coincidence. Dearborn, Missouri is the home of Mark and Cindy Hill and their family. The community is located approximately 30 miles west of Kansas City and is so small that it only has a couple of hundred people living in it at any given time. Dearborn is a genuine example of a small town in the United States, with a strong rural and country flavor. Mark and Cindy have 3 sons who are now adults and who range in age from 28 to 30. These sons no longer reside with them. In addition, Mark and Cindy have adopted a child from China who is 6 years old. Cindy had been settled since her career as an office manager in 2010, and Mark was working as a mechanic in a factory when they moved to Dearborn in 2010. As a result, the Hills were making a salary that was lower than the average income for residents of Dearborn, which is approximately $22K annually. Although he was doing vital and useful at work, the money he brought home was not enough to compensate for Cindy's loss of employment. It is not ideal for families to have only one source of revenue nowadays, and Cindy was continually looking for work. However, it was difficult for her to find work because their daughter had just been adopted and was adjusting to her new life. They didn't want to abandon her, but at the same time, they wanted to do everything they could to ensure that she was taken care of. For the first few years of Jade's transition, Cindy worked as a waitress on the side. This meant that at the age of 40-something, she was performing duties at a profession that she hadn't done since she was a teenager. He did it with a grin on her face and out of love for her kid, even though it was a significant step down from her previous position as office manager. In November of 2012, after Jade had been a member of the family for 2 years, Cindy was on her way home from doing errands when she stopped at a Trek Smart on the way. She had to go grocery shopping, but her mind was mostly preoccupied with the question of how she would manage to pay her bills this week. She was amazed by the amount of cash that was up for grabs in the lottery, so she decided to try her luck by purchasing 5 tickets. At the time, the jackpot for the lottery was the largest in the history of the United States, and it was also the greatest jackpot that has ever been offered in the state of Missouri. It came to a staggering total of $587 million. When Cindy was buying her tickets, she wasn't paying a lot of attention to what she was doing, so she was thinking about something else in the background. She paid $10 for the tickets, but didn't even bother to play her lucky numbers when she was gambling. I can't believe Cindy couldn't even bother to remember her own phone number. That blows my mind. She was so busy taking care of her children and making dinner that she simply threw the tickets in her car and forgot about them. She went to the convenience shop for the second time the day after she dropped Jade off at school, despite the fact that she had already done so. When she caught a glimpse of the winning numbers for the Powerball lottery on the television, she couldn't believe her eyes. She called her husband Mark as soon as she got the faintest suspicion that she was having a heart attack because she was afraid she could pass out. In addition, Cindy got in touch with Shirley, who is her mother-in-law, and the 3 of them studied the ticket very carefully. They held the winning lottery ticket for the most expensive jackpot in the history of the planet. They were able to walk away with a check for almost $300 million, or to be more precise, $293,750,000, because they were the winners of half of the prize. They were astounded. They had won a significant amount of money. What plans do they have for spending it? They had no intention of splurging on extravagant purchases like diamond jewelry, extravagant vacations, or ostentatious residences. After a few more months had passed, Mark decided to quit his job. In spite of this, he continued to meet his friends at the coffee shop, where they would eat lunch together and talk about what had happened during the day. In spite of the fact that he had entertained the notion of purchasing a Camaro, he was still operating a pickup truck that was older than 10 years, and he had not yet relocated from Dearborn. That money was a mystery to many of his friends, and he wasn't the only one who struggled to understand it. Both Mark and his wife were not flaunting their wealth by dressing in flashy clothes or wearing expensive jewelry. In fact, neither of them was even wearing a watch. So can you tell me what exactly they did with it? The Hills started off by looking quite far back into their history. Mark made a donation of $50,000 to the community of Camden Point, Missouri, where he grew up. He was of the opinion that the money would be better spent on constructing a sewage treatment plant. The residents of Camden Point will never be the same after hearing this seemingly incomprehensible request. Due to a lack of available funds, Camden Point had no choice but to install private septic tanks for each of its residents. Because of this, the sewage that was previously exposed to the eyes of the residents of the neighborhood would no longer be visible. Cindy and Mark wanted to be able to share their love with other people, so they were considering adopting a second child. They viewed the money as a gift from God, and they were present to ensure that it was distributed to organizations that would put it to good use. A donation of $3 million came from the Hills to the Fire Department of Dearborn. The department invested the money to build a brand new station in Camden Point, which made it possible for them to acquire a brand new ambulance. Many students from Dearborn were able to get assistance from North Platte High School thanks to the kindness of the Hill family. This assistance came in the form of college assistance as well as money for lunch. The Hills have not only put money away for their daughter's schooling, but they have also placed some aside for their nieces and nephews. Because of them, a significant number of students from the area's high schools have been given the opportunity to continue their education after high school. The Hills extended their generosity to the school district by donating money to help pay for the development of a brand new baseball field. The school district was overjoyed to learn that it would be receiving additional funding to construct a playing field that would be less hazardous for the students to use. The Hills wanted to travel to China with their daughter so that they could learn more about her ancestry. And they also wanted to travel to Ireland because they were both of Irish descent and wanted to learn more about their own ancestry. It is possible for money to sway people's opinions and values, but morally upright individuals are resilient against such persuasion, and they are more likely to be willing to lend a hand to those in need. Approximately 70% of people who win the lotto spend all of their winnings within a few years. There have been cases of people who were already millionaires prior to winning the lottery who have subsequently declared bankruptcy after receiving even more money from the lottery. It may not make sense at first, but possessing that much money might give you an inflated sense of self-importance. It would appear reasonable to assume that for the next 10 years following their victory, the Hills will live a long and happy existence. Those who are careful with their finances and don't get caught up in living a lavish lifestyle will be able to keep their wealth for many years to come if they spend their money wisely and avoid unnecessary luxuries. Mark Hill passed away in the year 2019, 7 years after he became a lottery winner. The time that had elapsed since he had died was only 59. Mark Hill had 6 grandchildren, and one of them was actually a member of Mark Hill's family. The Hill family performed a private funeral service for him at the family gravesite, and as a result, his reputation in the town as a kind and generous person will endure. The family asked for donations to be made to the neighborhood fire station, rather than the more common floral tributes. Even after he passed away, Mark continued to be generous and caring toward others. Even though Mark Hill left this world, his generous spirit remains with his wife and his family. He put in long hours throughout his life, and even after he was no longer required to work, he continued to give back to the community. Because of Mark and Cindy's dedication and selflessness, their tiny town of Dearborn was immortalized in history and served as a reminder to the entire country of the importance of community and selflessness. Firefighters from Camden Point have remarked that they will never forget the Hill family. The brick walls of the firehouse will continue to bear their names.